All right, let's talk about some common blade styles or blade shapes that you may run into every now and again when you are thinking about carrying for your everyday carry. Now, I talked about how I carry everything on my body, but I really don't do too much thinking when it comes to choosing a blade style or blade shape on the daily. Sometimes my tasks may depend on it. I'm going to talk about some blade styles, blade shapes, the benefits of each. These are my benefits from my personal experience. Comment down below and talk about, expand upon other use cases for these blade styles. Maybe even touch on some locking mechanisms and the finishes of the blades as well. The first one's probably the most common, the one that you're going to see the most often, which is the drop point. Let's kick it off with this one. This is the probably one of the most common, the most versatile of the styles that you're going to see. Sold all over the place, characterized by the spine dropping towards the tip. The design offers excellent slicing and piercing capabilities, so it's really suitable for a lot of different tasks for everyday carry. That's why a lot of manufacturers make it. A lot of folks are pumping this thing out. I like carrying a good drop point. This is the Kizer Drop Bear, but you know, there's tons of makers out there that are making drop point knives. So I like, if you're trying to figure out what should be your first blade style, your first blade type, I can highly recommend getting yourself a drop point style knife. Once you start to feel comfortable sharpening your knives yourselves, I think this is a good blade style to learn how to sharpen on. So drop point is an easy recommendation. Now, once you feel a little bit squirrely, you're exploring a little bit more, you're getting used to some stuff a little bit more, maybe you decide you want to get yourself a clip point for your first one. Similar to a drop point, but the spine of the curve is downwards, is a little bit downward more, and a little bit more abruptly towards the clip. Towards the tip rather. Clip points are known for their strength and their edge retention, making them very popular for like heavy duty tasks, chopping and prying and stuff like that. Now, you shouldn't do a lot of prying with your knives, but if you're going to do some prying with a knife, a clip point is a type of blade style that you may consider doing that for. This is the Spyderco Para 3, the lightweight with the FRN scales on it, with the compression style lock, a little bit different than a crossbar lock. So I'm a big fan of any Spyderco knife, but I really like the shape of the clip point. You get the same thing with the Para 2 as well. So that might be something that you may want to consider, is a clip point versus a drop point. Next, we got to talk about a Tanto, and then while we're in the same category, I guess a reverse Tanto as well. The Tanto is a distinctive style with a straight cutting edge and a pointed tip. It's originating from Japan, and the design is often associated with martial arts. So Tanto blades are excellent for piercing and thrusting. They can also be used for slicing, especially if you're slicing away from the body or whatever the case may be. This is a traditional style Tanto blade. The Gerber, this is the Fast Tanto Auto, and big old knife with a little bit of partial serrations. And then we have the Benchmade knife 445 BK, which is a reverse Tanto style blade. So either one of these, like I say, good from slicing away from the body. I'm a big fan of using a Tanto style blade. If I'm going to be cutting stuff like zip ties, I need to wiggle that blade into something where I still need a very sharp tip, but it may be something that's hard to get to. That's why I like this very tip of the knife itself, is because you can still get this inside of your cutting surface and still use that to cut something. That's why it's really good for that type of stuff when it comes to zip ties and just knocking that stuff out. Now, something I'm not a big fan of, but I think looks really good, is a recurve. A recurve blade, it features a curvy belly and provides additional strength and cutting power. This style is most often used in like hunting knives, tactical knives, and it's a very, very tough, and it's a tough material to put a blade style in for a knife. This is the Benchmade 710. The thing about recurves, although tough, I also think they're pretty good looking. They're hard to sharpen. Just the way that you have this curvy belly of the knife itself. I think that this is a sharpening task for somebody that has a little bit more skill. I am not very skilled in sharpening a recurve knife, hence why all my recurves are by Benchmade. I could just send them back to Benchmade and get them sharp with their Life Sharp process. But once you do feel more comfortable, you're, hunting a lot or whatever the case may be, you may decide that a recurve is your next go-to move, especially when you're trying to process a new kill, or you're trying to cut the lats off an animal, the hams off an animal, whatever the case may be. That's just a really great thing to be able to have as well. Also, very similar to a Tanto, but a little bit different, is a Wharncliffe. A Warnie blade is a simple yet effective style that has a straight back and a curved belly. This is designed for the slicing capability, and it's often used as utility knives, pocket knives for everyday tasks. If you're looking for a knife that's really good to get up on, kind of like similar to a pinch grip, and then be able to take this and do utility cuts on a surface or something like that, that's why I like Wharncliffes. So Warnie styles are really good for that type of cutting mechanism. So if you need to, for some reason, cut down into a surface, really great for that. Also really slicey for kitchen tasks. So if you're looking for a knife that can do great everyday carry stuff and you can use in the kitchen as well, then I can recommend a Wharncliffe very easily. This is the CJRB Pyrite Light, hashtag bars, $29.99. Normally very, very affordable knife, mainly because it is rocking the FRN scales on this. And then there's other blade shapes that I don't carry very often. You got straight back. This is a CDC Hansen. So for me, I just don't see the usefulness of them. Utility cuts, and I feel like this does almost everything a drop point can do, and it's just a little bit harder to get your hands on. So maybe you just want to own a straight back just to have one, but I don't necessarily think you need to run out and grab one for you to begin with. And then you have a sheep's foot, which sheep's foot I think are very aesthetically pleasing, but they're very similar when it comes to tasks as a Warnie. And it's not necessarily something that you need to run out and go get. You can also get spear, you can get clip point, other styles that may be something you may add to your collection, but I'm not showing today because I don't know if they add a ton of value in regards to being your first everyday carry knife. As you're exploring different knives that you want to carry on you every single day, you think about the blade styles. You can think about the locking mechanisms. We talked about different locking mechanisms as well. So, of course, we do have the crossbar lock, which is probably my favorite locking mechanism for a knife. Easy to use, has great opening action, usually really fun to use and just be able to have with you at all times. Compression style lock, which Spyderco does really, really well. Then you may have a liner lock, which is done quite often on a lot of knives, especially where they're trying to save money. Liner locks can be strong, and they're usually a little bit less money for manufacturing purposes. So a lot of companies will do those as well. So liner locks are something that you may get your hands on. Some of them have thumb studs, some of them have thumb holes. So opening mechanisms is something you could think about. Then you have a button lock, which is literally a button on there to release the blade from its locked out position. So different ways to and then you have lockbacks, you have slip joints that don't have a lock on them, different styles. But if you're trying to say X, what would be the one that you would go with, your into go-to? Because I feel comfortable maintaining on them, I would probably say it would be a crossbar style lock, followed closely by a liner lock. And then the last thing I would say is, for me personally, almost every knife that I own has more than one way to open it. Every knife that you saw on this table, except for kind of honestly the Spyderco PM3, has more than one way to open the knife. Because I just like to, if I'm going to spend more than 50 bucks on a knife, I like to be able to open it more than one way. It just, for me, I am not a fan of a knife that's solely a flipper. I don't think I showed you a knife on this table that's solely a flipper style knife. That's just me personally. And then my least favorite probably opening mechanism is probably right near the flipper is probably going to be a thumb hole, mainly because sometimes thumb holes aren't done that great. I think the people that do thumb holes the best are probably going to be Spyderco in my experience, but it just depends. So some of the blade shapes that I'm showing you, blade styles that you may want to consider for your everyday carry, just something to think about. First time stopping by, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. Let me know what's your favorite blade style down below. For everyone else, we'll speak soon.